Sanji's weaknesses, and oh boy, is he in trouble here. Immediately after reading his file, the army would order all.
Can the
If the
Straw Hats
could defeat the real world
What?
army, how would they fare against modern weapons like
interesting
tanks,
comparison.
fighter jets, bombs, or even missiles? Well, in order to answer that, I created 5 different levels the army would use to attack Straw Hats, and with each level, the army's
wouldn't they just like try to nuke them or
power
something?
will increase exponentially. Let's first see how would each member of the crew do on their own. Is there anyone among them who can beat all of the levels by themselves?
Yeah, but dude, in the god form, I don't know.
For example, the first wanted level is just a bunch of regular armed soldiers, which means Usopp will be outnumbered from the very beginning. Now, while Usopp is just a human who could easily die if hit with a single bullet, this guy is extremely lucky and also has thousands of tricks up his sleeve. For instance, he can use smoke bombs to make it harder for enemies to see him, and even dials from Skypiea to send their attacks back at them. Running from cover to cover and strategically taking out enemies one by one, I believe Usopp would
I think he could like take on normal like a normal squad.
Emerge victorious here. However, this means that his wanted level will now increase to 2 stars, and this is where everything gets much harder, as this level adds modern helicopters and tanks.
All right, he's not making that.
Survive this? Well,
he's not making that, bro.
Usopp doesn't stand a chance here, but that's not really the case, because he still hasn't used some of his most powerful attacks. Plants! His plants can entangle dozens of people at once, and could definitely grow tall enough to take down choppers. As for the tanks, the plants could just flip them over, rendering them
I didn't think about that.
From here on, Usopp can just finish off the remaining soldiers and be done with the 2nd level. Okay, Usopp definitely didn't disappoint so far, but now that he angered the military, they will add the 3rd wanted level to his name, and this one is the most dangerous by far, as Usopp will now have to survive against the advanced fighter jets. Click the subscribe button to wish him good luck. He'll need it. The 3rd wanted level would obviously be a big problem for our Straw Hat, as these things are way faster than helicopters and cannot be brought down with plants. On top of that, fighter jets can also drop missiles and bombs from the sky, which Usopp has no chance of avoiding. Realizing he has no chance of winning, Usopp would give up and surrender. And with a little luck, they may send him to prison instead of killing him. Although Usopp managed to get to level 3, this is still only a very small chunk of the army's full strength. Is there anyone among the remaining 9 Straw Hats who can take the entire army down? How about Nami? Well, similar to Usopp, Nami doesn't have any special physical abilities that would allow her to survive bullets, so she has to be really careful. During the 1st wanted level, she would be able to take care of all the soldiers simply by blowing them away
making it
using
past level 2.
Also, in order to make sure she doesn't get hit, she could create a tornado with her staff and deflect bullets that way. When it comes to the 2nd level, tanks and choppers would be a bit tricky to deal with. However, thanks to Nami's trusty companion Zeus, she would be able to easily destroy both tanks and choppers by showering them with lightning. Moving on to the 3rd level, Nami suffers the same problem as Usopp because she and Zeus would have a really hard time hitting fighter jets. Using lightning, she might be able to bring down a couple of them, but even so, just one successful missile hit would be enough to kill her. And she definitely doesn't have enough plot armor to dodge every single one. People usually consider Chopper the strongest character of the weakling trio, so let's see how many wanted levels he can pass. The first one would be easy. He wouldn't even have to use his monster point and could simply squish all the soldiers in his guard point. Now for the 2nd level, transforming into a monster point would be his only option if he wants to destroy the tanks. He can either completely destroy them by stepping on them or simply turn them upside down. Both
just gonna step on them
fairly well. Helicopters would be a bit problematic because Chopper doesn't have any ranged abilities, but considering they aren't really that fast, I think he can easily just throw tanks or other stuff to bring them down. Sadly, when it comes to the 3rd level,
is he strong enough to pick up a tank? Is that confirmed?
Well, no matter how much I think about it, I just don't see a way Chopper could bring down fast fighter jets. Throwing stuff at them would be one option, but being able to successfully hit these things would require a level of sniping skill that Chopper definitely doesn't have. So, unfortunately, Chopper's journey will also end at this level. Okay, the army proved to be a much stronger opponent than Straw Hats initially thought, but there are still 7 of them left to cover, and at the end of the video, we'll cover what would happen if all of them fought the army together. Brook is an interesting case because he should be very fragile, seeing that he's made out of bones, but in some ways,
then again, he's kind of dead.
Pretty durable. The 1st level would be a breeze for him. He's fast enough to dodge all the bullets, and even if he gets hit by a few, it's no big deal. The 2nd level is a problem for Brook for 2 reasons. Firstly, he can't use armament hockey, meaning he can't really slice through a tank, and secondly, he can't reach the helicopters. Thankfully, both of these problems can be solved by Brook's devil fruit powers. Using his fruit, Brook can detach his soul from his body to get closer to the enemies, and then use his soul scream to knock out those with a soul weaker than his. To be fair,
Okay,
he
I
only
guess
used
that
this
makes
technique
sense.
against homies, but in theory, it should work the same way on humans. Just think of it as a knockoff short-range version of Conqueror's Haki. Wanted level 3 would be an immovable wall for Brook for the same reason the other characters couldn't get past it. He just doesn't have a way to hit the jet. However, what if I tell you that Brook will actually pass this level? You see, no matter how many times the jet shoot Brook and scramble him to pieces, his soul can always pull the bones back
See,
together.
that's what I was
This
thinking.
means that after
Like, I
some
mean, he's
time,
kinda already
the battle
dead.
would be at a stalemate, which means that Brook would be the first character to get 4-star wanted
You
level.
gotta turn
This
him into,
level
like,
is a
dust.
bit different than the others, and instead
Basically.
of new weapons, the army will get knowledge on a specific Straw Hat they are fighting. Pretty much just imagine an army getting a list of weaknesses for each Straw Hat and then preparing accordingly. In Brook's case, the army could easily win by separating some of Brook's bones after he is destroyed to prevent him from regenerating. I know it sounds ridiculous, but Luffy did a similar thing to Buggy, so it would probably work on Brook too. After this,
Yeah.
they could just throw the bones in the sea, and that's it for poor Brook. But now it's time to see how good Frankie's technology and weapons are compared to what we have here in the real world. Level 1 has guns? That's nothing for Frankie. His steel body can't be scratched by weapons like that. Quickly moving on to level 2, the only thing that's kind of a threat to Frankie are the tanks, but it's nothing a few strong punches can't change.
I don't
As
think
for
he's
the
making it
helicopters,
past
he
4.
could use the flamethrower from his mouth to ignite them, crude
He's
event
not
to
making
blow
it
them
past 4,
away,
bro.
or any other weapon in his arsenal, really. The third level put a stop to 3 Straw Hats already, so let's see if Frankie is strong enough to clear it. With their missiles and bombs, the jets can obviously damage Frankie to a point, but he can do a lot more damage to them. The other Straw Hats struggled with reaching the jets, but Frankie has a perfect attack for this. Radical Beam! This high-precision, long-range attack makes destroying jets a piece of cake. And just like that, Frankie
like an
earned
AoE
himself a
attack as
wanted
well.
level 4. Going through Frankie's file, the army will quickly notice Frankie's greatest weakness, his back. In case you forgot, Frankie has mentioned several times that he can't reach his back to do upgrades on it, which makes it a weak spot with very little protection. Knowing this, the army can just surround him and start shooting. I believe Frankie would be able to survive for some time like this, but now that they're purposefully aiming at his back, a few bullets are bound to get through his defenses. When that happens, he would most likely just fall on the ground from pain.
See, the thing is, wouldn't the first like squadron, like first level, could take him down in case it was like a lucky bullet that hit him in the back? You know what I'm
believe the
saying?
army could handle it from there. However, the next
So,
Straw Hat, Jinbe, is going
It's kind of, he either survives the first one, or he can defeat number 4 star.
going to be the biggest challenge for the army so far. Would he be strong enough to beat the
Oh, damn.
unbeatable 4th level? Starting from the beginning, Jinbe would easily karate chop the soldiers while protecting himself from their bullets using armament haki. On the 2nd level and onward, Jinbe would stick close to a water source like a river so he can utilize more advanced fishman karate and jutsu techniques.
What if there's
mainly
no
the
water
ones that
though?
let him shoot drops of water like bullets, which can easily pierce and destroy both tanks and helicopters. For dealing with the fighter jets, I think his best strategy is to use his sea current lifter technique, which lets him ride and control a giant stream of water. This should be fast and powerful enough to make a big hole in the plains. Or
Okay,
at
that
least
makes
get
sense,
Jinbe
yeah.
closer to them so he can take
The thing is, it makes sense, but it really depends if there's water. You know, like if he's somewhere like far away from water, he's kind of GG, right?
down. But now that Jinbe got his 4th wanted star, everything becomes much harder. So let's see what the army has in store for him. First of all, it's important to mention that Jinbe doesn't have any big exploit. However, they can do something else. Take away his advantage, water. The best option for the army
that's
at
what I
this
said,
point
man.
would be to put some kind of poison into all the water around Jinbe, making it
Oh,
too
yeah,
dangerous
just
for him to
poison the
enter.
water, bro.
This would fully prevent him from
Okay.
using his fishman karate, right? Well, that's not entirely
poison
true,
the
because
guy.
he can still use the water particles in the air and his body to do some weaker moves.
But then
However,
he's
this would mean that
significantly weaker,
Jinbe
okay.
doesn't have any long-range attacks at his disposal now, preventing him from dealing any damage to flying enemies. The army would obviously take advantage of this, sending as many planes
And
as
GG.
possible to carpet bomb Jinbe. Considering Jinbe mastered armament haki, I doubt these attacks would deal any damage to him. But how long could he keep his haki active like this? A couple of hours? A day? More than that? Well, it doesn't really matter, as the army has infinite time and resources at their
Basically,
disposal. And as soon as Jinbe's haki starts to weaken, he'd be blown to bits. Nico Robin might be on the stronger
Maybe like
side of the crew,
stun locked.
but in the real world, she might not be as strong as you think. Obviously, she could take out the 1st level simply by growing hands on her enemies and snapping their necks. During the 2nd level, she could do the same against the person driving the tank, since the range of this ability is quite big, while the helicopters would require her to grow a giant arm or leg to take them down. However, the problem with Robin is that her defense is non-existent, because she doesn't
Exactly,
have
what
an
the hell?
armament haki, and the body parts she creates with her devil fruit still hurt her if damaged. With that being said,
I
the
feel like
only way
she could maybe not even be possible to take off the 2nd star, because like if there's enough people, she can't deal with all of them at the same
Robin
time,
can
right?
hope to catch up to the Jets as if she
So,
transforms
like-
into Demonio Fleur. But
Okay.
the reality is that would just make her an easier target. So by the time she manages to bring down a couple of planes, she would already be full of holes and probably dead. Sadly, this means that Robin wouldn't even complete the third level.
I think she
due to
wouldn't even
not
complete
having
the second
any
one.
defense.
I'm just saying.
And finally, we are moving on to the monster trio, the three strongest Straw
This is what
Hats.
it's at,
Is there
boys.
anyone
This is where
among
it's
them
at.
who can defeat all 5 levels by themselves?
Probably
Let's
Luffy,
start
right?
with Sanji. Now, we all know how strong Sanji
Maybe Zoro.
is, so there's no point in covering the first 2 levels, as he could literally go through them blindfolded. So, against the mighty fighter jets, Sanji could easily reach them using Geppo technique, which allows him to jump on the air. Once he's high enough, a simple fiery kick would do the trick, and just like that, Sanji's wanted level is already increased to level 4. It's
basically.
quite obvious that Sanji is way stronger than anything we have in the real world. His durability is also insane, and it's really hard to imagine that
but I
any
feel
of
like
the
they could
regular
just nuke
weapons
him.
could hurt him. So we can just skip the last 2 levels and call it a day? Well, not so fast. The 4th wanted level grants the army knowledge of Sanji's weaknesses, and oh boy, is he in trouble here. Immediately after reading
Just
his
use
file,
women.
the army would order all forces to retreat and send in a special Sanji squad,
Bro
consisting
said
only
women
of women.
fighters.
Oh no. Although it sounds silly, throughout the series, Sanji always refused to fight
God.
women. Not only that, but was ready to let multiple
Dude,
women kill
imagine
him without
now he can see women in 3D. Oh my god.
second thought. Unfortunately, the same thing would happen here, and Sanji would be quickly eliminated, never reaching the 5th level. But could his rival,
is a
Roronoa
professional
Zoro,
simp, man.
do better than him? In Zoro's case, well,
Alright, I think Zoro's got a chance.
There's just no point in even discussing it.
Nah,
Now,
we don't even-
pinning
skip
Zoro
the first
against the
3, to be
fighter
honest.
jets, it might look like he can't do much against them. I mean, sure, he can't fly like Sanji, but who needs that when you can send out shockwaves with your
exactly.
swords? Don't forget that Zoro cut a freaking tornado, so he could surely slice the planes just as easily. When it comes to the 4th
that
stage,
Minecraft
Zoro
plane?
would actually cut a freaking tornado, so he could surely
Is that Minecraft?
slice the planes just as easily. When it comes to the 4th stage, Zoro would actually pass it instantly because, well, he doesn't really have any exploitable weakness. Sure, he has a bad sense of direction and likes to battle people stronger than him, but in the real world, I just don't see a way the army could utilize any of this against him. It's not like
passes
they can
4,
just
but he
send
doesn't pass
Mihawk to
5.
battle for them. This means that Zoro would be the first Straw Hat to get the 5th wanted level. In this final level, the army will use every single weapon and opportunity at their disposal. Not caring at all about collateral damage. I'm talking many more jets than before, artillery, biological weapons, and even nuclear bombs. Can Zoro really win here? Well, kinda. You see, Zoro would have no
Okay.
trouble dealing with anything the army throws at him. He can cut the weapons of any material and also survive pretty much anything. However, one thing he would be completely helpless against is a nuclear
Nuke.
bomb.
Yeah.
Now, I know many of you are going to say, what are you talking about? Of course Zoro can survive the nuke. But can he really? A nuclear bomb in our world is the closest thing we have to a weapon that destroyed Lulusia. And do you really think Zoro would survive this? Yeah, he wouldn't. As soon as the nuke drops, Zoro wouldn't be feeling very good, and that's
Literally
because there
instantly
wouldn't be Zoro
vaporized.
anymore. Before we cover how the battle between all Straw Hats together and the army would go, let's first see if the crew's captain, Luffy, can do anything by himself. Can one of the 4
I don't know, can we
emperors of
withstand
the
a
sea
nuke, though?
defeat
I
the
don't know.
whole real-world military? Starting off at level 3 again, because no need to cover the first 2 ones, Luffy would be in no danger whatsoever. Nothing on this level can hurt him, so he can do as he pleases, casually jumping around, destroying tanks and helicopters with a few light punches. Though he would probably need to transform into Snake Man to catch up with the jets more easily. In the 4th level, the obvious weakness the army would try to exploit is Luffy's weakness to seawater. They would bring firefighter helicopters that carry thousands
Just
of liters
hose
of
him down.
seawater and dump it all straight on Luffy. They could probably do something like this on a very large area, making it really hard to dodge. This plan would seem successful at first, with Luffy falling to the ground. However, when the army tries to approach him, he would activate his Conqueror's Haki and knock everyone out, beating the 4th level without throwing a single punch. For the final level, Luffy would unleash his Nika form and go crazy. The combination of his Haki and rubbery fruit would make him invincible to any weapons at the army's disposal. Similarly to Zoro, The only thing that stands any chance of hurting Luffy at this point is the atomic bomb. While in the middle of battle, Luffy wouldn't pay too much attention to what this weird thing falling from the sky is, so when it comes really close to the ground, he would realize it's something dangerous and would have to act quickly. Using his Gear 5 powers, I don't doubt Luffy could come up with a bunch of ridiculous ways to stop it. However, in typical Luffy fashion, he'll choose the dumbest one: to eat it. Once the bomb explodes inside him, his body will inflate to a gigantic size in order to contain the explosion. Yeah, it sounds absolutely stupid and unrealistic, but hey, that's Gear 5 for you. So that's it? Luffy won?
Yeah, but wait, is like technically, because he's made it out of rubber, technically, I think rubber will get destroyed by a nuclear bomb, right? Like, it literally destroys the atoms, right?
Not quite. You see, although he did survive the explosion, the amount of radiation created from it would be off the charts, and Luffy's body would soon start failing. His poison immunity wouldn't help him here, and he would soon die. Hey, at least he'd be dead in one piece, unlike Zoro. So, none of the Straw Hats could defeat the army by themselves, but here comes the important question.
Together?
Can they defeat the whole army if they work together?
Just more nukes,
Levels
right?
1 through 3 would be nothing new, and none of the crew members would even get injured. For the 4th level, the military would make use of all of the Straw Hats' weaknesses, but this time, their efforts would be completely useless. The Straw Hat pirates work perfectly as a team, so they would know how to cover each other's weak spots, which would quickly earn them the 5th wanted level. Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji would have this situation under control, easily disposing of even the most advanced weapons with ease. The others would mostly try not to get in the way and cover each other's backs. As a last-ditch effort, the army would launch the atomic bomb to wipe everyone out, but not everything would go according to the plan this time. Now that the whole crew is together, someone would definitely notice the bomb while it's still in the air and would come up with a plan to stop it. Knowing everything there is to know about weapons, Frankie would suggest cutting it while it's still high in the air in order to minimize the damage. By the way, this is actually how nukes work apparently. If they are intercepted mid-air, they won't explode properly. There are a couple of ways the crew could do this. For example, Zoro could destroy it from a safe distance using his sword shockwaves, Luffy could turn it into rubber and break it, or maybe even Usopp could shoot it. No matter how they choose to go about it, the explosion would be avoided and the fight would be finished. There would be nothing the army could do at this point, so I guess the answer to the question is yes, the Straw Hats could defeat the real world army if they wanted to.